Hello, everyone. I'm Hunter Ohanian, the director of the College Art Association, and I'm very fortunate to be here today with my good friend and colleague, Elizabeth Schlatter. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hey, Hunter.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Now, where am I talking to you from? Where are you?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia. You're in New York.
And tell us a little bit about your organization.
Sure. So I'm with the University of Richmond Museums in Richmond, Virginia. It's a small liberal arts college right in the middle of Virginia. And we have 3 museums. We have an art history museum, a print studies center, and a natural history museum.
And your role there is?
I'm the deputy director and curator of exhibitions.
Great, great. And tell us a little bit about a few upcoming exhibitions.
Right now we're setting up an Edward Weston photography exhibition that compares some of his earlier photographs from like the 19-teens. And how stylistically there's continuity with that, and his later work that he's known for, like his peppers and his nudes. We have an exhibition about some vessels throughout all cultures and histories. What else? We have some student work coming up as well. And then in the spring, we're doing interviews and photographs with Richmond, Virginia residents who grew up in the city during the Civil Rights era.
Great. Well, anybody who's in the Richmond area, be sure to stop by. I've been there to the museum, and it really is just great.
Yeah.
So how long have you been on the CAA board?
On the board? I think I'm starting my 3rd year.
Well, and how many years have you been vice president for the annual conference?
The whole time. Been a fun ride.
You decided just to jump right into it, huh?
Yeah.
So this will be your 3rd annual conference?
Yes.
Yeah. And the annual conference, of course, as everybody knows, is going to be here in New York in February 2019. So let me start with the beginning. And so you've been involved with the conference for 3 years. Tell us, sort of in the beginning, what you hope that CAA members get out of the conference itself.
Sure. Well, it can be a stressful experience for some people coming to the conference, because I know a lot of people are still coming for job interviews, or they're coming to interview candidates, which in itself can be pretty grueling. But at the same time, we sort of hope people feel like it's a bit of a mini sabbatical for them, where you can come and focus in on and meet other people that share the subject matter that you study or publish about, or they share similar interests in the creative practice that you have. So it kind of gives you the opportunity to just delve into some intellectual, creative activity, as well as getting a lot of networking done, and kind of give you a break if you're teaching, or if you work for yourself, or if you work for a museum or a company. Just kind of give you a little bit of a break from the day-to-day operations, so you can focus on maybe some of the passions that brought you to the field in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So as Vice President for Annual Conferences, you chair the Annual Conference Committee. And from what I hear from Tiffany Dugan and her team, who manage the conference here at CAA's offices, we had almost 1,000 submissions, both full sessions as well as papers and proposals.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the process. How does it work that sessions get selected?
Right. So I'll actually just correct you. So Charlene Villaseñor-Black is the chair of the conference committee, and we're thrilled to have her on board. For the past 2 years, we had Judith Rodenbeck, who really shaped the conference in its new sort of iteration, where we exponentially scaled up the number of opportunities to participate. We also really closed in on the amount of time it takes us to form a conference. I think it used to take almost 2 years, and now it takes only 1 year, which allows us to be a lot more nimble to interests of membership and submission and reviewing. We get all these submissions that come in, and then we try to populate the conference committee with people who have different subject specialties, that are at different stages of their career, have different familiarity with College Art Association, but hopefully they do have familiarity with the conference itself, so they sort of know what the experience is going to be like. With that many sessions, not one person necessarily can read all of them in one sitting, so they get divvied out each session, each proposal, whether it's a paper proposal, a call for papers proposal, or a fully formed session, gets read by 3 separate people. Sometimes we have to call in reinforcements, especially if we have a huge number of sessions, or if there is an obscure topic, sort of, we might bring in some people from some of the affiliated societies to come help us review. And then we score them, which is hard because it's not an exact science. And we also then, as a group, look at all the final selections, and then the chair and the committee try to think as best they can holistically about the whole conference experience. And so that, as best we can, there isn't a major practice or activity or academic field that's been dropped out. There are always some trends that kind of bubble up that are new from last year. And then we end up with, what's the number, how many hundred sections in papers
over 300.
We end up with?
I think right now we're estimating we're going to be at 325 panels.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And we always try to schedule the same topics at the same time.
That's right. We do as much as possible to ruin the experience.
Right.
No, we've been, oh my gosh, the conference committee and Charlene have been amazing, and Tiffany as well, to try to think about these ribbons or these threads of content so that as best we can, we don't have scheduled conflicts of related topics. For example, I know there's a whole thread, I think it's on Thursday, of political sessions, art and politics. I think my favorite session title it's called De-Skilling in the Time of Donald Trump, or the Age of Donald Trump, which is the best title. So that's during that thread. There are a number of threads about monuments throughout history and contemporary. There's a number of threads about design. We have a lot of, I know there's some threads about 19th and 18th century art. There's threads with pedagogy, and we even try to not just line up a whole day with one of these in each of the slots. Sometimes we'll have 4 to 5 slots per day. Sometimes we even keep them in the same room. And the idea behind that is to make it easy for the person attending the conference to not have to move around all the time, but also really encourage connections between people, the people who are attending and listening, as well as people with the panelists that are speaking. You sort of hunker down in that space and get comfortable with it and meet all these other people who are interested in the same thing as you.
Sure. Yeah, no, I made a joke there about the fact that, we put them at the same time, but of course we do everything we can not to have similar topics that are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
We can have as many as 30 sessions going on simultaneously.
Right.
And of course, from a scheduling standpoint, we're really beholden to those who are doing the presentation. So if somebody says they're only available on Wednesday afternoon, that's really the only time that we have them in order to be able to do it.
Right, that's right.
We also, I think we're lucky this year too, because we have a lot of submissions on early modern themes as well too.
Yeah. In fact, we have a whole day. I saw on Wednesday, it's a whole thread of antiquity and the impact of antiquity in early modern art, which is very exciting.
So, with your experience in the annual conference, if you were going to advise a first-time chair, what kind of advice would you give him or her?
Yeah. Well, I think it's helpful to think about your audience member. We don't always call conference attendees audience members, but they are there to learn about the scholarship and the themes of the session that you've put together. So if you can think about how to put together your session in a way that maximizes the interest of the attendees, of the audience. So it's important to communicate with everyone who's in your session ahead of time. There's nothing worse for an audience member to show up and see everybody scrambling to try to figure out who's going to talk first, who's going to introduce who, do they have the right tech equipment. Having all that solidified in advance really makes for a better experience. Think about potentially not just having your panelists read their papers one by one. If the panelists are game, maybe ask them to give shorter papers, 5-minute papers. Provide a lot more time for Q&A. Even if that's not possible, if you can, as chair, keep a close eye on the time. We only have 90 minutes for these sessions, and we really encourage some Q&A amongst the panelists as well as with the people who come. if you're speaking, I think this was, you had suggested this, to really think about your presentation as a story and craft your presentation as a story for the attendees to listen to. It's really important that you're getting your own creative practice and your research out there, but you also want the people listening to be engaged and excited with what it is you're presenting. I think also think about how you want to wrap things up at the end. If there's some ideas or takeaways that you want to leave people with, because sometimes you don't want your session just to fizzle out, everyone to walk out. It's kind of nice to wrap it up in a bow. And, even the best sessions, everyone stands up and there's a buzz in the room because everyone wants to keep talking either amongst themselves or with the panelists. So if you can kind of encourage that with your enthusiasm and a conclusion, that's good too.
Yeah, I think those are all really important things because really, as you say, as educators, we're trying to reach the individuals, even if they're peers, we're trying to reach the individuals in the room, and we want them to walk away with some new idea and some reason why they should go further with the scholarship that they've heard. And also, as you say, with the 90-minute panel, you have a chair who's going to set it up for the first 5 minutes, and then you want to leave 10 minutes at the end, at least, if not more, if not 15 for quick questions.
Yeah.
So, you're now down to, an hour or an hour and 15 minutes for those presentations. And if you've got 5 people there, you're gonna kill that time pretty fast. Yeah. What are some of the things you think people should avoid doing, or some of the best things to not do as a panelist?
Well, try not to sit there with your paper and just read it line by line. I know it can be somewhat nerve-wracking if you haven't given a talk before, but if you can practice ahead of time. Again, we keep stressing the time element. Make sure you don't go over time. We do recommend practicing in advance and timing yourself just to see how long it takes, because you don't want to take away, your colleagues' time.
Just to interrupt for a second, I think that's a really good point, because from an organizational standpoint, as we were saying, we're going to have over 300 sessions, and altogether there'll be over 800 activities. There'll be over 5,000 people attending all of these. And unfortunately, to give everybody their due shot, we have got to start every session on time, and we have to end it on time. And we really rely upon the chairs, because if you go beyond that time, what you're doing is cutting into that next person's time in order to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I've noticed too with these, now that we have shorter sessions that are 90 minutes as opposed to 2.5 hour, when we had 2.5 hour sessions, people would go in and out and in and out. And now that we have 90-minute sessions, people stay put. Yeah. So you want to be efficient and courteous to the investment of time that the attendees are contributing to being there. I think showing interest in your other panelists is important as well. You don't want to come off as someone who flies in, reads their paper, and leaves. You're missing out on your own opportunity to connect with people if you take that kind of approach to it.
So just one last quick question, sort of away from the sessions, but really more geared toward new members, maybe graduate students or people just entering the field. Apart from the whole job side, what should they be looking for to get out of attending a CAA conference for the first time?
Yeah, well, they're furthering their peer network by going to these sessions, by meeting people. It can be pretty intimidating, to be honest. I mean, I remember the first time, Hunter, I think I've been a member of CAA, I think, for almost 25 years.
Wow. 25,
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think my first conference was in 1994. Wow. And it was for me, it wasn't a good experience. It was very intimidating, and people were not friendly. Yep. And the conference has completely changed from then. And of course, I'm older and I've been in this industry a lot longer, obviously, but it definitely feels like a much more friendly conference. And I'd love it if it was the type of conference where if you see anyone with a name tag, you should feel comfortable introducing yourself to that person, right. Whether you're finishing up a panel that you attended, whether you're in line for coffee, if you're in the elevator, going up to your room. Hopefully everyone will do that with you and me.
Yeah, right.
Because I know we like to ask people how it's going, like on the spot. It's really great for us to get that kind of feedback right there. So I'm hoping all the attendees, regardless of if it's your first conference, your third, your 25th, if it's your second career, that you'll just feel comfortable introducing yourself. And you're all there for you're there for the conference, so you already have something in common to start.
That's a really good point, because there is hiring that happens there, and there's obviously a lot of networking, but it's not the same kind of stress, I think, that there once was with all the hiring. And so people should, I hope they relax and enjoy themselves and feel included and help other people feel included.
Yeah, and then you can just say, have you been to any good sessions?
Sure, that's all it takes.
There you go. Or you can complain about the internet. You can also do that.
Or the price of the coffee, or or how long the coffee lines are. We do the best we can to try to make that stuff happen, but but it's.
Oh, here's a secret for coffee. So, if you go to Starbucks, if you're in the New York hotel and you have the Starbucks app, you can order the coffee while you're in your session, and then you can go. There's 3 Starbucks right there around the hotel.
Fabulous.
Go grab your coffee and go right back in.
Okay, so we're going to have the CAA Development Office get Starbucks as a sponsor now. So
sorry, that's my secret.
Well, thank you for all the volunteer work that you do here. It must be like a second full-time job, and.
Well, No, I mean it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's really it's such a privilege to and I love working at the conference because it's this incredible opportunity to see so much of the artistic activity and art historical research that's going on, not just in the United States but abroad. And I don't know how you could get that vast of a picture of what's going on right now than if you than doing this conference work. So it's exciting.
I think it kind of goes without saying. It almost sounds like a cliche, but there isn't actually another opportunity to see this density of a diverse amount of scholarship in one place. So
right, yeah, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, so anyway, thanks again, and I'll be seeing you very soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Bye.